Welcome to iFire Story. This is your go-to spot for gripping tales of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. From true infidelity stories to cheating wife chronicles and Reddit's wildest family dramas, we dive deep into the raw emotions and twists that keep you hooked. Whether it's a lost love saga or a shocking cheating audio story, we've got it all. So, hit that subscribe button, grab some popcorn, and let's spark some stories that'll set your heart ablaze. My brother turned my life into a nightmare, and then he went and got my wife pregnant. Now he seeks my assistance after our parents turned their backs on him, leaving me with their $3 million inheritance. My younger brother, Michael, has consistently held a profound grudge against me. To assume it arose from jealousy would be a mistake. He was the chosen one, while I remained in the shadows. He had no cause for envy. For some background, our mother consistently pampered Michael. He was the shining star of our family. She prepared his meals, took care of his laundry, and even requested my assistance with his school assignments. I was anticipated to lend a hand solely due to our familial ties, yet I never encountered the same regard in return. I embraced this, as I was rather self-sufficient. Maybe I contributed to the situation by consistently fulfilling his needs without anticipating anything back. He was never there for me in my times of need, only coming around when he had his own agenda. As a reserved and introspective child, I found solace in my studies and preferred solitude in stark contrast to his boisterous and rugged demeanor, reminiscent of our father. I have a tendency to be direct and candid, always presenting things as they are. I think my mother might have formed a less favorable view of me due to my candid nature. This favoritism positioned Michael as the family's favorite, and I was indifferent to it during our childhood. Yet difficulties arose when he began to bully and ridicule me for not being like him. He would playfully poke fun at my height and the fact that I wore glasses. He would quietly enter my room, peruse my diary, and then voice his grievances to my mom regarding my words. When I raised my voice at him and expressed my frustrations to our parents about his invasion of my privacy, they dismissed it with laughter, insisting it wasn't a significant issue. He committed even more terrible acts, such as almost shattering my glasses and contaminating my food with unpleasant substances. He even once added tiny stones to my cereal, but fortunately, I discovered them before they could harm my teeth. When I shared this with my mom, she brushed it off, claiming that this is just how brothers connect. In every argument, Michael would target my vulnerabilities to hurt me. We attended the same school, which meant he was aware of the bullying I faced from a few kids. Rather than offering me support, he chose to align himself with the bullies, hurling insults such as ugly loser and hairy monkey, and even goading them to inflict physical harm, declaring that I was merely a big failure. On another occasion, amidst a dispute over something insignificant that has faded from my memory, he uttered the words for me to take my own life. Although I can typically dismiss many insults, that particular one struck a chord with me, especially as I was grappling with my mental health during that period. I'm feeling improved now, but it was truly heartbreaking to learn that my own brother wished for my demise. With Dad frequently occupied with work and Mom appearing indifferent, there was even a moment when she reprimanded me, asserting that I was to blame for bothering him. Conditions steadily deteriorated. In high school, a startling event unfolded when Michael tried to ignite my hair, and astonishingly, our mother came to his defense, insisting he was just having fun. Honestly, who acts like that? Fortunately, my father ultimately supported my perspective and highlighted the seriousness of the matter. He even made a threat to involve the authorities regarding Michael. This moment truly illuminated my brother's understanding, as he had never encountered any repercussions for his actions prior to this. He was truly taken aback, and my dad firmly stated that the time for tolerance had passed and that Michael must begin to show respect for his older brother. Eventually, my father entered my room for a conversation. I was taken aback by his support, as he often remarked to Michael about their similarities, and he was right. Father confessed that he had been patient for years, wishing for Michael to grow up. But he was gradually coming to the unsettling conclusion that Michael was turning into quite the bully. Listening to my dad say this was profoundly affirming, and I nearly succumbed to tears. I revealed all that Michael had put me through over the years, and even brought up the bullying I faced at school. My father was taken aback by the extent of what I had gone through. The following day, he approached the principal to make certain that the bullies were cautioned about the serious repercussions they would face if their behavior persisted. Later that evening, my father signed me up for MMA at the nearby gym, insisting that I needed to toughen up and confront the bullies in my life. I acknowledge that a somewhat geeky individual like myself attempting to learn combat might have appeared amusing, yet I was incredibly determined. I effectively organized my schedule to harmonize my academic pursuits and daily exercise routines, and the MMA classes transformed both my life and my physical appearance. One day, Michael was at it again with his mischievous ways. He took my pocket money, which we earned for assisting with chores. I had been holding on to it for some time. Michael quietly slipped into my room and grabbed it. I intercepted him right before he could ride away with his friends. I insisted he give back my money, but Michael ridiculed me, claiming that all I could do was seek help from my father. Something took hold of me, and before I knew it, I had struck him in the face. He was taken aback, stumbled backward, and I swiftly took my money from his pocket before pushing him down again. Michael burst into tears, and it was rather amusing. Nevertheless, my mother hurried outside to assist him and discover what had transpired. Upon discovering that I had confronted him, she expressed her astonishment and chastised me, insisting that I ought to set a more positive example for Michael, who appeared to take pleasure in witnessing my reprimand. My mother expressed her concerns to my dad regarding my behavior, suggesting that I required some guidance. My dad sternly demanded that we both justify our actions. I recounted the incident where Michael had taken the money I had diligently earned and saved. In his defense, he claimed he required the funds for a date, insisting that as his brother, I ought to assist him. Nonetheless, my father informed Michael that he was fortunate I only resorted to a punch for his theft, as anyone else might have involved the authorities. He persisted in explaining to Michael that he had no authority to seize what belonged to others without their permission. Michael was not pleased and erupted in a fit of frustration, probably wishing our mother would take his side. Yet Dad stood his ground, unwaveringly. Upon the moment Michael understood that there would be no repercussions for the blow he received, he unleashed a torrent of disdain, expressing his deep-seated hatred for me before retreating to his room, securing the door behind him. After that incident, Michael started to pull away from me. He finally realized that his attempts to intimidate me were futile, and even my dad had ceased to back his behavior. After a significant period, I sensed a newfound balance between us. Even though he was no longer able to inflict physical pain, he turned to verbal jabs in the absence of our parents. As the years went by, his demeanor deteriorated, growing increasingly irritable and quick to anger. Whenever I tried to engage him with a question, he would dismiss me and stroll off, quietly hurling insults like nerd or loser as he went. Whenever he had something to say, he preferred to pass it on through our mother, rather than addressing me directly. When I inquired about why Michael couldn't simply communicate with me, she would encourage me to be more empathetic. I was unsure whether it was merely a phase of adolescence or something deeper, a true animosity. As time passed, enduring his remarks grew increasingly intolerable, and I yearned to escape and find my own space away from him. I asked my mother multiple times to facilitate a sit-down conversation for us to address our issues, but she consistently declined, expressing her desire to remain uninvolved. When I inquired about her thoughts on Michael's treatment of me, she would dismiss the question. Ultimately, I departed for my dream university, having secured a scholarship as a leading student. My dad hosted a celebration in my honor, and even my mom appeared to take pride in it. Yet, Michael kept his distance, hardly recognizing my accomplishments. The day I departed for university was filled with a blend of anticipation for what lay ahead and a sense of liberation from the suffocating atmosphere of home. The initial months at university felt like a breath of fresh air. I forged new friendships, relished my classes, and began to create a life distinct from the stifling environment of my upbringing. The persistent anxiety from Michael's verbal assaults faded away, granting me a refreshing sense of tranquility. In my second year, I encountered my wife, Sarah, at a frat party thanks to a mutual friend, and we instantly connected. Growing up in a religious environment, having children outside of marriage, was viewed negatively. Upon learning of her pregnancy in our final year, we made the decision to tie the knot immediately after graduation. Our wedding was an intimate yet delightful ceremony. Our parents shared in our joy, and we relished the festivities. In that instant, I was convinced that Sarah was my one true love. I had always imagined a committed partnership, a single woman to return to and share my life with. Even with other women expressing interest throughout the years, I chose not to pursue anything, as I found true contentment in my marriage. Sarah was the embodiment of my dreams, and I would never wish to cause her pain. However, I subsequently discovered two instances of betrayal in our union. One involved a sporadic relationship with her married colleague that lasted for several years, while the other was a short-lived encounter with an ex-boyfriend during a trip to see her family. Some may perceive me as naive, and in hindsight, I can't entirely argue against that notion. Whenever we parted for a time, I made the decision to forgive my wife. I was determined not to bring our child up in a fractured environment and had faith that we could navigate these challenges together. The relationship with her colleague occurred during our younger years, and I considered it a result of youthful errors and lack of discernment. For a time, it appeared that circumstances were improving. Even though complete trust was elusive, I endeavored to put my uncertainties aside, understanding that true forgiveness required a sincere commitment to beginning anew. 4 years have passed since her second betrayal, and I felt assured in my choice to offer her another opportunity. Sarah appeared to have transformed, and we felt a true sense of joy as we envisioned our family's future together. 3 months ago, my world was once again turned upside down when she disclosed that she had been involved in a long-term affair and hinted that our son might not be my biological child. Her words hit me with overwhelming force. A whirlwind of shock, betrayal, and disbelief engulfed me. The weight of her confession was difficult for me to grasp. In a fog, I found the words to inquire why she had concealed such an important truth, and how she could have committed an act so destructive. Her response was frigid and unfeeling, as though she were removed from the suffering she inflicted. Her ambiguous replies only deepened my curiosity, leaving me with an abundance of questions yet to be resolved. It was an unsettling and heart-wrenching experience, facing the broken trust and doubt surrounding my own family. I persisted in urging Sarah to reveal the truth, as I believed I had the right to know the identity of the father of the child I had been nurturing since birth. In the end, she confessed it was Michael. My eyes grew wide with disbelief as I inquired of Sarah what she intended. She shared that she and Michael had formed a friendship after I introduced her to my family, and she spent time with us from Thanksgiving through New Year's. Michael, who typically kept his distance, was unexpectedly warm and courteous to her, which pleased me as I wanted to ensure Sarah felt at home. Sarah sought to gain acceptance into my family, dedicating considerable time to my mom whenever she could. She observed the divide between Michael and me and inquired about it. I shared my thoughts on our troubled relationship and conveyed that it may remain beyond repair because of his lingering emotions. Sarah grasped the situation, but began inviting Michael to our outings, believing it might strengthen our connection. Each time we decided to enjoy a film, she would extend an invitation to Michael, and we ended up viewing whatever selection he made. In this moment, Michael and I shared a few words, marking a notable shift from his typical silence. I recall Sarah and Michael spending time together, engrossed in their video games, but it never struck me as anything significant. Sarah shared with me that there was a moment when Michael confided in her about his challenges and a recent breakup. In a moment of vulnerability, he initiated a friendship with her. She noted that he would innocently flirt with her in my absence, and eventually, the situation spiraled beyond her ability to manage. The sight of my wife and brother resting side by side filled me with a sense of unease. Sarah admitted to feeling guilty afterward and chose to leave him, which aligned with her sudden choice to return home rather than celebrate New Year's with me. Despite my efforts to persuade her to remain, she was resolute in her decision to depart. Upon our reunion at college after the break, she radiated her typical cheerfulness, leaving me with no reason to doubt anything. 2 weeks later, we discovered she was expecting. Sarah confessed uncertainty about whether the child belonged to me or Michael. Lacking any means to verify the truth, she decided to remain with me, recognizing my reliability as the more steadfast brother. This is the reason we chose to unite in marriage. My universe seemed to be collapsing around me. The child I cherished may not even belong to me. I inquired of Sarah whether she had been sharing her nights with Michael lately, and she gave a slow nod. She disclosed that they had consistently maintained their connection due to their undeniable chemistry. They would slip away to hotels, deceiving me with tales of working late, She confessed that many of her business trips were, in reality, intimate escapes with him. I inquired why she chose to marry me when her heart seemed to lie with my brother, and Sarah replied that she didn't want to be the one to end the marriage. She viewed me as an exceptional father to our son and chose to remain. She admitted to making a mistake and expressed uncertainty about when to halt. I expressed to Sarah my appreciation for her honesty, but I made it clear that I intended to gather my things and depart. She began to weep, pleading for forgiveness, anticipating that I would raise my voice at her. Instead, I methodically organized my garments. Sarah firmly believed that if I truly cared for her, I needed to stand up for our relationship, acknowledging that every marriage faces its share of challenges. Upon understanding that I would remain passive, she shifted her approach, claiming our son would suffer from a divorce and emphasizing that children ought to be nurtured in intact families. I pointed out that I might not even be the father, which only made her cry harder and accuse me of being heartless. It appeared as though she thought there was nothing that could drive me away from the marriage. Maybe I bear some responsibility for allowing things to drift in the past. Although I had feelings for her, it seemed more rooted in the belief that we shared a son and had been partners since our college days. Sarah continued to assert that it wasn't too late to mend the situation, yet I found it hard to trust her and felt my patience waning. Trust loomed large, and her words resonated with emptiness. Even if I were to forgive her, the memory of her betrayal with my brother would linger forever. I've always held the view that we should forgive mistakes, as we are all imperfect beings, but this crossed a line that cannot be overlooked. I walked away, leaving her in tears on the doorstep, and found solace in a hotel room. The following day, I approached my parents and disclosed the entire truth about my wife's relationship with Michael, detailing how they had been clandestinely involved for years. The astonishment etched on their faces was unmistakable. In keeping with her character, my mother first sought to protect Michael, asserting that her son would never harm his own brother. Resolute in my quest for the truth, I requested my parents to hold their tongues as I prepared to call Michael in their presence. I directed them to remain silent, allowing me to surprise Michael and make him think it was an intimate discussion. Upon Michael picking up the phone, I directly addressed him regarding the affair. Initially, he passionately rejected the notion, unwilling to acknowledge any accountability. Yet, upon revealing that Sarah had confessed to everything, he began to cast blame her way, labeling her as devoid of character. He asserted that it wasn't his responsibility if women found him appealing, and that he was the more handsome sibling. I declared with conviction that I would reveal his true nature to all. As Michael ridiculed me, claiming that no one would take my word over his because he was the favored one, I couldn't help but scoff at his hubris. I expressed my gratitude for his unwitting confirmation of the truth, fully aware that our parents had overheard the entire exchange. Michael fell silent for a moment, then stammered, attempting to articulate his thoughts and restore his reputation. My mother, reeling from the surprise, insisted on an explanation from Michael. He stumbled over his words in a weak effort to defend his actions, pointing fingers at everyone but himself and frantically trying to cast the blame onto Sarah. I observed my mother, who had previously been a shield for her cherished son, now experiencing a blend of disappointment and anger. In that intense moment, I experienced an unusual feeling of justification For years, I had suffered under Michael's relentless cruelty. The truth had emerged, and the dynamics had shifted. It was Michael who stood vulnerable, his deeds revealed for all to witness. As Michael's words stumbled, my father, typically restrained in his emotions, could no longer hide his disappointment. He requested the phone from me and started conversing with Michael. Michael, my father started, his voice heavy with disillusionment. Your actions have not only betrayed your brother, but have also betrayed this family as a whole. You engaged in a relationship with your brother's wife and maintained that connection even after their marriage. Your choices carry significant weight and have permanently broken the trust we once shared. I nurtured both of you to cherish family, uphold loyalty, and embody decency. Your actions today contradict all the lessons I've attempted to impart. He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle into Michael's mind. Your indifference towards your brother's emotions and the disrespect shown towards his marriage are simply intolerable. You've not only caused him pain, but also fractured the connections that unite our family. Your mother and I acknowledge our role in shaping who you are, but we can no longer accept this conduct. Effective immediately, you will no longer have access to the college funds I established for you. You'll need to find a way to cover your university fees independently. I will also cease supporting your way of living. Do you believe that engaging with married women enhances your masculinity? Let's observe how you cope in my absence. During this time, I kept a calm and collected presence. While my first instinct was to yell at Michael, witnessing my dad discipline him felt like the perfect form of justice. I had revealed his genuine character, and it was evident he had misjudged the repercussions. My mother, in the face of Michael's relentless objections, kept defending him, yet my father quickly terminated the conversation, cutting off Michael's efforts to rationalize his behavior. Later on, my mom came over and wrapped her arms around me. It had been ages since we experienced a moment like that, yet in that embrace, there was a silent connection and reassurance amidst the chaos of family life. She expressed her regret for doubting me all this time. At 14, I could never have envisioned this moment, feeling validated and welcomed by my mother. After that, my father assisted me in locating a competent attorney to handle my divorce from Sarah. She and her attorney attempted to play unfairly, seeking alimony due to my higher earnings. But her infidelity worked significantly in my advantage. A paternity test was also carried out, confirming that Michael is, without a doubt, the father of the child. The news struck with a profound intensity, far more agonizing than the revelation of Sarah's betrayal. I was consumed with rage that the child I had cherished and nurtured was not my own. Nevertheless, I chose to remain resilient. Sarah implored me to keep visiting my son, insisting he shouldn't suffer for the circumstances, yet I found it unbearable to face him. He brought back memories of Michael, and I despised it. Once my divorce was finalized, a wave of liberation enveloped me as I settled into my own bachelor pad. Living alone felt like a dream, especially since I married at such a young age and never truly had the opportunity to embrace independence. Nonetheless, my inherent independence enabled me to swiftly adjust to my new way of life, and I found great pleasure in it. 2 weeks ago, my dad reached out to share that he was contemplating a revision of his will, as he wished to exclude Michael from any inheritance. My dad is remarkably resolute, and once he made the decision to remove Michael from his life, He remained unwavering in that choice. Michael made attempts to connect with our parents, even going so far as to appear at their doorstep, pleading for their forgiveness, yet they denied him entry. Even my mother, who typically succumbed to Michael's outbursts, appeared to have reached her limit with him, though it surely weighed heavily on her. Michael never reached out to express any remorse for his actions, indicating that he felt no regret. His frustration stemmed solely from being distanced from our parents. My father mentioned that he intended to leave everything to me, making sure that Michael wouldn't challenge it in the future. He would bequeath Michael a mere $1. My eyes widened in disbelief as I realized the immense effort my dad had put in throughout his entire life. The total, factoring in his assets, retirement fund, and life insurance, approached nearly $2 million. The sole stipulation in his will was that if my father were to pass away before my mother, she would remain in their home, despite the ownership transferring to me. I was willing to embrace this, as my desire was to support my mom during her last days. Somehow, Michael discovered this and, unable to contact our parents, reached out to me yesterday, attempting to reconcile. He shared his challenges with college, noting that after Sarah uncovered the child's paternity, she had been persistently seeking child support from him. He mentioned that he was broke and was searching for part-time work, yet he couldn't come across any opportunities. He implored me to reach out to our family for a new beginning, as he genuinely required my assistance. I chuckled at him and declared that I was finished with him. I pointed out that he ought to have considered the repercussions before becoming intimate with my wife and fathering a child with her. Michael contended that I was being unjust and that Sarah shared the blame, a point with which I concurred. I pointed out that I had ended my marriage with her, which meant she was now his responsibility. He has no right to call me and voice his complaints about her or the child, as these are the direct results of his own choices. Michael began to elevate his tone, but I cut in, reminding him that he was no longer the beloved child in the family, but rather the outcast who had betrayed his own brother by sleeping with his wife. In that instant, Michael broke down in tears, sharing how everyone, even our grandparents and relatives, had turned their backs on him. Although this was accurate, it no longer held my interest. I informed him that our relationship was over and that he should refrain from contacting me again, as I no longer viewed him as my brother. Since that moment, I've revisited the dialogue in my thoughts. Even though I despise my brother, I had never witnessed him cry, not since our childhood days. I won't deceive you. It pained me somewhat to witness his vulnerability. I'm wondering if I should bring him up to our parents, or if it would be wrong not to. Update 1. Hello everyone. I know many of you have been wondering about my lack of communication with my son James, and some have even labeled me as cruel. I must convey that I feel uneasy about the idea of raising someone else's child. This isn't a situation involving a stepson. I was under the impression that James was my son, only to later find out that he is, in fact, my brother Michael's son. This revelation struck a profound chord within me, leaving me in tears for days on end. The primary reason I wish to sever ties with James is that I no longer desire Sarah's presence in my life. I must keep my distance from her child, as I know she will seek a way back into my life, and I require my own space. You might perceive me as harsh or self-centered, but I simply cannot envision a time when I will see him again, at least not for quite a while. Update 2. Many of you accurately deduced that it was my mother who notified Michael about my dad altering his will, prompting Michael to reach out to me as a final attempt to resolve the situation. I faced her in front of my dad, and she crumbled, insisting that I had disciplined Michael sufficiently and that he had grasped his lesson. My father made it clear to my mother that if she thought Michael's actions were excusable, he could no longer remain in the marriage, as he could never come to terms with such a betrayal. This menace hushed my mother. My father was unequivocal. If she ever spoke to Michael again, and we discovered it, she would need to gather her things and go. As I noted, my father is quite obstinate. I hope my mother will gain wisdom from her past errors. Update 3 Reddit. It has been 5 months since my previous update. In recent months, the bond I share with my parents has grown stronger. Every weekend, my dad and I hit the golf course together, where he treats me more like a friend than a son. Even though my mother feels the absence of Michael, she has chosen to keep her distance from him. The most recent update I received regarding Michael came from my cousin, who mentioned that Michael had been soliciting money from everyone and ultimately had to leave college due to financial constraints. He and Sarah share a home, and he works part-time as a mechanic. It seems they are co-parenting James, which I suppose is a positive development. I avoid talking about Michael with my parents, and they refrain from mentioning him as well. To all those inquiring, I am faring quite well. 2 months ago, I received a promotion at work, leading to a notable increase in my salary. I haven't been involved with anyone romantically, as I believe I require more time and space to recover. I've started attending therapy, so I'm curious to see how that unfolds. That's it for today's fiery tale on iFire Story. If you got caught up in this infidelity story or Reddit cheating drama, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. What would you do in this situation? Subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next true story of love gone wrong. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay curious and keep the spark alive.